Hello, and welcome to Ms. PM Reads Christian Content, where we are continuing in our story, All's for the Best by T.S. Arthur. And in our last video, there was a little section about a woman who had lost her child, not lost, her child had passed. And there was discussion around that with a friend of hers. And then we met Mr. Markland. I don't know if Markland is his first name or his last name. They just refer to him as Markland. And he was I think, wealthy, unhappy person. And that's kind of where we were in the middle of that. So we talked about envy and detraction and doubt and distrust and all those terrible things that can get into a person's heart and mind and confuse them as to what's kind of a blessing. Anyway, so that's where we stopped. So doubt and distrust heralded the coming of fear, anxiety, solicitude, suspicion, despondency, foreboding. Markland had only to open his eyes and look around him to see on every hand the unsightly wrecks of palaces, once as fair to the eye as that which he had raised with such labor and forethought. And as he contemplated these, doubt, distrust, and their companions filled his mind with alarming thoughts, and so oppressed him with a sense of insecurity that, at times, he saw the advancing shadow of misfortune on his path. Thus it was with Markland at 50. He had all good as to the externals of life, yet was he a miserable man, and worse than all, he felt himself growing more and more unhappy as the years increased. Was there no remedy for this? None, while his heart was so filled with evil affections, which are always tormentors. He did not see this. Though his guests disturbed and afflicted him, he called them friends and gave them entertainments of the best his house afforded. Oh, here we go. Sometimes pity came to the door and of his heart and asked for admission, but he sent unkindness to double bar against it. Generosity knocked, but avarice stood sentinel. Envy was forever refusing to let goodwill, appreciation, approval, delight come in. Detraction would give no countenance to virtue and excellence. Doubt made deadly assault upon faith and trust and hope whenever they drew near, while ill will stood ever on the alert to drive off charity, loving kindness, and neighborly regard. Unhappy man, fiends possessed him, and he knew it not. It so happened on a time that Markland, while standing in one of his well-filled warehouses, saw a child enter and come towards him in a timid, hesitating manner. A beggar, drive her away, said unkindness and suspicion, both rousing themselves. Markland was already lifting his hand to wave her back when Compassion, who had just then found an old way into his heart, hidden for a long time by rank weeds and brambles, said in a soft and pitying tone, "She is such a little child." "A thieving beggar," cried unkindness and suspicion angrily. "A weak little child," pleaded Compassion. "Don't be hard with her. Speak kindly." Compassion prevailed. Her voice had awakened into life some old and long sleeping memories. Markland was himself, for a moment, a child, full of pity, tenderness, and loving kindness. Compassion had already uncovered the faraway past, and the sweetness of its young blossoms was reviving old delights. "Well, little one, what is wanted?" Markland hardly knew his own voice. It was so gentle and inviting. How the pale, pure face of the child warmed and brightened. Gratefully, with trust and hope in her eyes, she looked up at the merchant. There was no answer on her lips, for this unexpected kindness had choked the coming utterance. Rebuff, threat, anger had met her so often that soft words almost surprised her into tears. Well, what can I do for you? Compassion held open the door through which she gained an entrance, and already goodwill, kindness, and satisfaction had come in. Mother is sick, said the child. A lying vagrant, exclaimed Suspicion, jarring the merchant's inward ear. There is truth in her face, said Compassion, pleading, and at the same time she unveiled an image, sharply cut in the past of Markland's life, an image of his own beloved but long-sainted mother, pale and wasted on her dying bed. Give this to your mother, he said hastily, taking a coin from his pocket. There was more human kindness in his voice than it had expressed for many years. God bless you, sir. The child dropped her grateful eyes from his face as she took the coin, bending with an involuntary reverent motion. Then, as she slowly passed to the warehouse door, she turned 2 or 3 times to look on the man who, alone, of the many to whom she had made solicitation that day, had answered her in kindness. So much for the encouragement of vagrancy, said Suspicion. Played on by the heart of a cunning child, said Pride. Markland began to feel ashamed of his momentary weakness, but he was not now wholly at the mercy of the guests who had so long tormented him. Compassion, goodwill, and kindness were now his guests also, and they had other and pleasanter suggestions for his mind. The child's God bless you, sir, they repeated over and over again, softening the young voice and giving it increasing power to awaken tender and loving states which had formed themselves in earlier and purer years. Tranquility, oh boy, so long absent from his soul, came in now through the entrance made by Compassion. Markland went back into his counting room, almost wondering at the peace he felt. Taking up a newspaper, he read of a rare specimen of statuary just received from Italy, the property of a well-known merchant. Envy did not move in quickly enough. The old love of beauty and nature, which envy, detraction, greed of gain, and their blear-eyed companions had kept in thrall, was already in a freer state, and found in goodwill, kindness, and tranquility congenial friends. So, love of art and beauty ruled his mind in spite of envy, and Markland found real pleasure in the ideal given him by the description he read. It was almost a new sensation. A friend came in and spoke in praise of one who had performed a generous deed. There was an instant motion among the guests in Markland's heart, the evil inciting to envy and distraction, the good to approval and emulation. Tranquility moved to the door through which she had come in, as if to depart, but goodwill, kindness, and approbation drew her back and held with her possession of the mind they sought to rule. Envy and detraction were shorn for the time of their power. Wondering as he lay on his bed that night over the strange peace that pervaded his mind, a peace such as he'd not known for many years, Markland fell asleep, and in his sleep there came to him a dream of the human heart and its guest chamber, and what we have faintly suggested was made visible to him in living personation. He saw how evil affections, when permitted to dwell therein, became its enemies and tormentors, and how just in the degree that kind and good affections gained entrance, there was peace, tranquility, and satisfaction. I have looked into my own heart, he said on awakening. The incident of the child and the dream that followed were, in Providence, sent for Markland's instruction, and they were not sent in vain. Ever after, he set watch and ward at the doors of his heart. Evil guests already in possession were difficult to cast out, but he invited the good to come in, opening the way by kind and noble acts, done in the face of opposing selfishness. Thus he went on, peopling the guest chamber with sweet beatitudes, I would say beatitudes, until angels instead of demons all filled his house of light. Sounds like the end, doesn't it? But it's not. We're not even halfway. But that's our stopping spot for today. That is the end of that chapter. Wow. This is an interesting book. I thought it was going to be the same characters all the way through the whole thing. But we're meeting new people all the time in new situations. So I'm finding it interesting. I hope you are too. All right, you guys, I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.